What's up? What's happening? Welcome in on a Vibe Check Tuesday to the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. A show that also streams live on YouTube at the Team 980, where you see a dancing into the song that is playing on the radio, Anthony Haney, which is hilarious because, again, Anthony, the people on the internet can't hear the rejoin music.
I hate that for them.
Actually, they might have been able to hear that one.
Nah, I took it out.
Oh, nope. So you're just mean mugging and rapping along to Jay-Z. I'm not going to tell the people that were watching on YouTube what song. You have to guess by lip reading Anthony.
Yep.
So there's that. We're going to start the show talking NBA Finals. We'll get to some Commanders vibe check style coming up. You'll hear from Logan later on in the show as well. Talk a little KD trade destinations. I have one that I actually really like, so we'll talk about that later on in the show. But Anthony, we're going to start with the NBA Finals. And I want to ask you a question, and this will lead which segment goes first, if you will. What's the biggest factor in the Thunder defeating the Pacers last night? I'm going to try to ask this as neutrally as possible. What's the biggest factor in the Thunder winning the game last night? The Thunder scoring more, I'm trying to, whether you wanted to frame it as Thunder beat Pacers or Pacers lose to Thunder, right? I'm trying to take that as a neutral. I'm not saying based off of the Thunder or based off the Pacers. In the question, I'm not implying one or the other. In the Oklahoma City win in Game 5, what was the biggest factor? There, that's a neutral version of the question.
I'm going to say the turnovers. I feel like Indiana really turned the ball over at an extraordinarily high clip, and the Thunder were able to capitalize off of that. I think, if you just look at the box score, you'll see that the Thunder got out to a huge lead. The Pacers outplayed them in the second half or scored more points than them. But I think the real difference is really the turnovers.
So that's a great answer, and unfortunately doesn't solve the conundrum that I was trying to get at here, which is essentially no, it's fine. Because the number one story that everyone's talking about is Haliburton.
Yeah, for sure.
And Haliburton's play is impactful on the turnovers in multiple ways, right? But I don't want to get too deep, and we've at least taken long enough that I'm going to make an executive decision here. It's also my job to do that. I want to talk about the Thunder first.
Okay. And
then I want to talk about Haliburton. And I will tell you, my Haliburton take is that everyone is missing really important stuff about that. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that he played well and that, actually there's no problems here, because that would be stupid. But some of the commentary about Tyrese Haliburton is so outrageously over the top, and all you're doing is telling on yourself that you didn't watch the game, and maybe, I don't know, you were playing solitaire. You get that little drive-by, Anthony?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start off with the Thunder, though, because we often skip by the winner to talk about what went wrong for the loser, and I don't think that's fair. Because the Thunder defense was sensational last night, especially in the second half and in the fourth quarter. For the second straight game, they just cranked it up to a different level late in the game. And to the point where you're almost wondering, were you conserving something earlier? Which is something that would not actually surprise me, because Mark Daigneault has talked about, and the Thunder to an extent have talked about, they're pretty secretive, obviously. It's kind of one of their trademarks. But even with just what we see, they are making sure that they are fresh for the fourth quarter. The way they've adjusted Shea's minutes, the way that they've gone with their substitution patterns. Daigneault's talked about it a little bit. And I think some other folks in the Thunder organization have talked to the Zach Lowe's of the world to say, we are looking to make sure we are fresh late. Because obviously early in the series, Indiana wins by being tremendous late, including in game 1 where they didn't have a win. Or they didn't have a lead until the final 0.3 seconds, and when Haliburton hit the shot, and ultimately they take the lead. And it seemed like, and by the end of game 3, remember, we're talking about how tired they looked. And it's like, oh my God, is Indiana about to do this? Because Oklahoma City looks dead, and this is the only game in the series with 2 days rest. And so Oklahoma City comes out in game 4, change up their rotations, change a couple of things, and they crank it in the fourth quarter, and they survive get the split in Indy, and now all of a sudden they go home, they win. It's the first time Indy's lost 2 games back-to-back in the entire playoffs, and Oklahoma City has not lost 2 games back-to-back either. Now Indy's going to have to beat them 2 straight to win a championship. So when you look at what the Thunder have done, one, the ability as a team to raise their level, and then individually, what Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did last night was remarkable. I mean, they absolutely were sensational, especially late. But even at the points where like McConnell's going crazy and Indiana is making what feels like another one of their signature runs that they're somehow going to turn this game around, Williams was able to keep them afloat enough that the lead, like, it kept feeling like, well, first, it was the same thing that's happened all series, right? Where the Thunder, it feels like they should be up 30 and they're up 10. And you're like, phew, that feels scary. But then Indiana's coming back, but you're like, how is it still 13? How is it still 16? How is it still 10? It feels like we should be at a tie game at this point. And it's because Jalen Williams kept going one-on-one, kept breaking pressure, kept putting pressure on Indiana, and flipping the script of the game, and it gives them enough late. So he has 40. And then, by the way, there's people starting to talk about, oh, did he just put himself in the conversation for Finals MVP? No, because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has had 30 plus in 4 of the 5 games, I think, in this series. And last night he has 31 and 10. He's the freaking MVP who's playing like it, and we're just taking it for granted. So the Thunder deserve so much credit because Indiana's really good, man. Like, they're really, really good, and they're really hard to play. I know they're not as talented as some previous NBA champions, and part of that is the roster rules and the way this thing, like, the collections of talent of 3 Hall of Famers on a team, those days might be over unless you're doing what Oklahoma City is doing, where you trade for SGA before anyone knows how good he is, and you draft guys like Williams and Chet, and we'll see if those guys even get to that level. Chet, obviously the biggest wild card there, is the youngest of the bunch and the least accomplished of the bunch, but he also was very good last night. But ultimately, the Thunder last night, Anthony, have 7 players with a block and 7 players with a steal. Team effort. Wiggins hit a bunch of threes. Like, that was Oklahoma City Thunder basketball at the highest level. And when they play at their highest level, we can talk about Haliburton in a second, and we will. But I find it hard-pressed to find a team in the NBA that can beat them at their best. And they were maybe not their best last night, but they were a really freaking good version of themselves.
Man, they were nasty. Jalen Williams, him getting downhill, he's been – the last 2 games, I think he's understood that there's nobody really on that team that can defend him and prevent him from getting to the basket. And I think he just made his presence felt, just being in attack mode all night. But the fact that, he can go off for 40 and then Shai still get his 30, it's going to be tough to beat a team like that when they have 2 guys scoring at such a clip. And we've seen this before. We've seen LeBron and Kyrie do it. We've seen Steph and KD do it. So, like, when you have a dynamic duo, as they do, scoring and, making it easier on everybody else, it just makes that team so much harder to beat. And then, them as a defensive unit, like, Shai's out there getting block after block. It's just like, man, the whole team is just locked in. So they deserved it yesterday.
He was great, Shai was, defensively last night. And Williams was obviously excellent, too. And it is made easier by the fact that the opposing backcourt made 0 field goals in the second half. Everyone's crushing Haliburton today, or at the very least questioning why he was playing. But I have a stat that proves to you that he actually wasn't the main problem yesterday. I will share that with you next on The Hoffman Show. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Craig Hoffman here. Super producer Anthony Haney there talking to you about the Commanders in a few minutes. Vibe check Tuesday question that you can start pondering. Who's the most important Commander not named Jayden Daniels? That's going to be our poll question today. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. Anthony, I have a pop quiz for you. I'll even make it multiple choice, A or B. Was Tyrese Haliburton, and by the way, the answer is not a trick question. 0 is not the answer to this. Was Tyrese Haliburton plus or minus in the second half yesterday? Plus, as in the Indiana Pacers outscored the Oklahoma City Thunder when he was on the floor, or minus they got outscored?
I'm going to say he was a plus because it was fairly close, and at the end of the game, he wasn't in. So I'm going to say plus when he was on the court.
They were a +3 with Tyrese Haliburton in the second half yesterday. And to me, watching that game live, that felt fairly obvious. Now, that is not to say that Tyrese Haliburton played well, nevertheless well enough to be a superstar on a championship-winning team. Like, whatever that means, however nebulous that is, however silly the superstar conversation is, like, no definition of it fits what Tyrese Haliburton did yesterday. But Tyrese Haliburton, the idea that he needed to come out so that TJ McConnell could come in and close that game. Could McConnell have been out there? Absolutely. Would I have put him out there for Andrew Nembhard, potentially, based off what Nembhard was doing, who also had zero field goals made and had 4 turnovers in the second half alone yesterday? I can make that argument. Obviously, then you're having a loss defensively against SGA. You have to deal with that, but you got to make choices. But watching the game yesterday, and it doesn't match up with the conversation about Haliburton. What makes Indiana special is the way they play. The entire engine of how they play is Haliburton. And when Haliburton was out there, the pace was still their pace. He was rebounding the ball at a high level. And his assists, like he still had, I think, 4 assists in the second half. So 8 assists for a game is not a bad day at the office. And so, while yes, his inability to nevertheless get off a shot is a huge issue. And I want to talk about why I think that happened in a second. The idea that he was some bane on the Pacers' existence, that it's the worst finals performance by a point guard or a star or a player in league history, like some of these absolute, just insert your insult here, that talk about this sport for a living because they can't help themselves. That is wrong. It's incorrect. It's not supported by the film. It's not supported by the data. It's not supported by logic. It's ridiculous. He didn't lose his aggressiveness. He couldn't get past Lou Dort. And that to me is the thing. This injury is particularly harmful for Haliburton, who is not elite at getting his shot off. He does the bouncy, jerky, herky-jerky, bit. He's bopping all over the place. And for a guy who has that style, who's quick and twitchy, a calf injury is pretty debilitating. And so if he loses 10 to 20% of his quickness, he goes from a guy that struggles to get his shot off but does it in the unorthodox way that he does to a guy who literally can't get a shot off. And that was a problem because it put him in a bind a couple of times. It created a couple of turnovers. It meant that at times where he should have taken a shot, he's swinging the ball to Nembhard. Now Nembhard's got to create. That leads to his turnovers. Same thing for Siakam. So there's a trickle-down effect that is hurtful and harmful to his team. And in a game where they're floating in that 10 to ultimately down to 2-point margin, if they even get 15 points from Tyrese Haliburton in this game, Indiana's got a great shot at winning. So I am by no means dismissing the importance of Tyrese Haliburton scoring as someone who has talked all series long about his aggression to score specifically. However, you take him out of the game and they cease to become the thing that makes them great. And all the other players, while there's a trickle down that's negative, there's a bigger trickle down that's positive by him being in there. And I thought that was plainly obvious watching yesterday, and I have not heard anybody talk about that today, especially amongst the bigger shows on four-letter networks and other places where talking heads talk about basketball unintelligently.
I feel like the point you made is valid, but I think when you think about how successful the Pacers have been when Tyrese Haliburton is scoring and is able to score, how drastically that looks than, what we saw yesterday. So I think that's what a lot more, I guess,
but
media
that analysis
members,
is lazy, because what's the alternative? And I realize that for some, it's, I can't believe you got to put T.J. McConnell back in there late.
I mean, they end up going to him late. McConnell.
Yeah. And I'm fine with putting in McConnell for some of that fourth quarter, some more of that fourth quarter. But also that means taking a guy who makes, like, if you're doing the McConnell for Haliburton substitution, you are now losing the engine. Like some of Tyrese, actually, I'm going to look this up real quick. Some of McConnell's most productive minutes in that game, I'm pretty sure came with Haliburton on the floor. Like, they played a good amount together, and Tyrese was like, hey, man, go to work. But Haliburton's ability to kind of conduct, and this is the thing, right? Because I heard Stephen A. On the Hoop Collective postgame show, which was Brian Windhurst and Amon Shumpert, and Bontemps eventually got in there. And I thought Stephen A. made, I'm going to say it, I thought Stephen A. made a really good point. I thought he came to the wrong conclusion, which is kind of my point, which is you have guys like Nembhard, who can handle the ball, Nesmith, who can handle the ball, that can make a play out of a pick and roll, that can create a shot, right? Siakam as well. Siakam was awesome for the first three quarters and then kind of fell apart in the fourth, specifically offensively. A couple of turnovers and just seemed out of control, in part because Oklahoma City's defense was great. But the point Stephen A. made that was correct was none of those guys are point guards. None of those guys manage the game in the way that Tyrese manages the game. And I thought, despite the fact that he couldn't score, despite the fact that it was impossible for him to get a shot off, that he still managed the game at a high level. And I think the difference is if you take him off the floor, now who's Lou Dort guarding? Is he guarding McConnell? And if he is TJ getting to the rim the way he was against insert backup guard here? All due respect to Cason Wallace, who was also very good yesterday. Multiple steals, hit a couple of threes, was a huge part of that second quarter run. But, he was also a huge part of T.J. McConnell getting Indiana back in that game. Lou Dort is not getting torched by T.J. McConnell. And so the matchups change. And so to pretend it's as simple as, if you had put T.J. in, does he get the same production he got in the second quarter? No, that's not how the sport works. And so it's finding the balance of, okay, we have three guys. We need Tyrese's game management and his pace. We need TJ's ability to get legitimate penetration and score because Tyrese isn't. And we need Nembhard's defense on SGA. And clearly, Carlisle didn't get it right because they lost. But my question would be, what's the right combo of those three things where they would have won? And I don't know that actually existed last night, which gets back to why I wanted to start the show talking about the Thunder, because I don't know how Indiana beats them yesterday. Because unless you can magically fix Tyrese Haliburton's ankle, the way you beat them is Hallie scores. That wasn't on the table for him yesterday. And taking him off the floor just because of that didn't necessarily make you that much better.
To answer the question, I mean, it was a 4-point game in the fourth quarter yesterday. McConnell and the second unit, they did a great job, cutting it real close. I think when we get to the fourth quarter, that's when all those turnovers that you start talking about, where Tyrese can't get by Lou Dort, so he's, sending it off to Nembhard, who gets stuck forcing up a bad shot, or Siakam or Turner. That's when those turnovers start to happen, and then that's when the Thunder go on to, create the separation that they needed in order to, put the game out of reach kind of thing. So I think both things can be true to an extent. I think Haliburton could have managed the game very well, but I think those turnovers in the fourth quarter, when the game was close, I think sort of kind of hurt them.
Of course it hurt them. But I think the difference is, pretending like all that stuff was going to continue, to me, is kind of silly. Because, yes, it got down to a 4, maybe even a 2-point game at one point. But Indiana made a run, and that came on the heels of an OKC run. And, like, that's the NBA. It's a game of runs. And ultimately, that run was probably going to stop. And OKC made theirs because it was their turn, their time to make a run. As for McConnell yesterday, he played the most minutes with Mathurin, and they were a +5. Second most with most with Mathurin, they were a +5. He was even when he was on the floor with Siakam and Nembhard. He was a -5 on the floor with Toppin. And then +4 with Turner, +2 with Haliburton.
Do you think McConnell has played better this series than Haliburton?
No.
Okay.
He's had better scoring in these short bunches, but, like, that goes to the expectations. I mean,
he's not also playing a lot, though, Craig. He's playing, like, 16 minutes a game, 17 minutes a game.
TJ's been great, but, like, I think this is where people get super mixed up. Like, Richard Jefferson said this last night on the broadcast. Well, how has this guy never been a starter? Because when he becomes a starter, he's not as good because he has to play against starters. TJ is one of the best he's probably one of the best 25-point guards in the league. And in that way, he should be a starter. But if you can get the 21st best point guard to be your backup, now he's great as a backup because he's playing against backups. You get him out there against starters, he's out there getting guarded by Lou Dort that he's not scoring 18. He's not doing that stuff. But even last night, I mean, Haliburton's got 7 rebounds, 6 assists. McConnell, 4 and 4, 18 points. Like, yeah, last night, TJ McConnell, definitely better than Tyrese Haliburton. Over the course of the series,
he had the one game where he had 5 assists, 5 steals, 10 points. He had another. I mean, the only reason I asked you that is because a lot of people were pushing for McConnell to, get put back in the game and maybe ride his coattail since, Haliburton's hurt. So, and the fact that he had a good game yesterday,
look, they might have to do that. They might have to. But what I'm telling you is yesterday, if there was a guy that I'm taking out of the lineup yesterday based off how he was playing yesterday, because all you can do is play the game in front of you, in the second half, it was Nembhard, not Haliburton. But people want to crush Haliburton for his lack of scoring, which was their take going into the game, and then he has a putrid scoring game. I'm not saying that's not a big factor. And again, it was a huge problem. But I think still with that, Haliburton was a net positive for them in the second half, which is after halftime when he's reevaluating. Nembhard, not the same situation. And again, that's a risk you have to be willing to take because of the defense that he's played on SGA. But at the end of the day, like, Nembhard's doing a great job on SGA, and he's averaging like 30 a game in the finals. He's making them work. It's hard. I don't know that anyone else would be doing better, but it is definitely, when you dive into the numbers, and I think, frankly, if you watch the games, it's more complicated and convoluted than that. All right, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. When we get back, your calls, 301-230-0980, as we switch gears and talk Commanders here on the show and ask a simple question. This is a good Vibe Check Tuesday question that Anthony popped to me earlier today. And actually, I popped this, Anthony, we did a mailbag episode of Take Command this morning. And I was like, Logan, I have a question from Anthony in D.C. So we talked about it on Take Command, too. Who's the most important non-Jayden Daniels commander? 301-230-0980. We chop it up with you next. I'm going to do a 60-second rant real quick before we get into this vibe check. The current question on NBA Today on ESPN, well, I guess this is I think I'm watching it on ESPN News, so this was on earlier today. What is the ceiling for Jalen Williams after Game 5 performance? Who cares? The NBA Finals are going to be decided in the next 3 days, potentially. Can we talk about the games? This is why commentary on this sport specifically is so freaking broken. It is apparently impossible to talk about the game in front of us. Anthony, we just had a really great 15-minute conversation about specifically Game 5 and Tyrese Haliburton's role in it and how the trickle-down effect of the other players. And we are two guys that I think know pretty well. We know ball, but we're sitting here on the radio. They have people, one who played in the NBA, two, another who's a Hall of Fame journalist, and my guy Tim McMahon, who I love. And Malika is great as a host. This is, I don't know whose idea this was, some producer, but the brain rot that has to happen to be hey guys, what do we talk about? How about we talk about the ceiling for Jalen Williams? Why? Who cares? Why are we always obsessed with this larger contextual picture of this is why this guy's great? Or I wish people could understand, explain it to us. That's your job. That's literally your job, is to explain why this thing is happening or how hard it is, because you have the perspective of being there and covering the games or having played the game. What? Why? Why? Who wants that? Who wants that? Did you leave Game 5, Anthony, wondering what's Jalen Williams' ceiling?
Not at all.
It's so disappointing. If we could just talk about the games through the lens of this is what it takes to win. The discourse about sports in general, nevertheless, this particular sport would be 1,000 times better. 1,000 times better. Instead, it's the superstar. Who cares? That's my rant. I want to go home for the day. I'm done. I'm so over it. We're going to talk about football now. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. Eventually the call screener will pop up too, so that'll be cool.
We got a couple people.
I'm sure we do. I'm sorry that they've had to sit through me yelling, so I'm gonna get to them quickly. Here's our question that we're talking about with Commanders. Who reset? Take 2. We're live on the radio. Action. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday. And the question we're asking you about the Commanders is, who is the most important commander not named Jayden Daniels? 301-230-0980 is the phone number. Since we got people lined up, let's go ahead and get to the phones before we give our answers. Let's start off with our guy, Gary, in Upper Marlboro. Gary, thanks for waiting through my rant there. Apologize for making you wait, but you're on the Hoffman Show.
A lot of things wrong with the NBA, in my opinion. So no worries on that. I'm going to go offensively, Terry McLaurin. I just don't think they have anyone near him. If they lose him, I think the passing game takes a major dip. I don't think Debo is the kind of player that Terry McLaurin is. So definitely Terry McLaurin. I thought about Laramie Tunsil, but I'm going to go with McLaurin. And on the defense, Frankie Louvu is a good choice, but for what we gave up and for what we need from him, I'm going Lattimore. If he plays the way he played the last 4 or 5 games last year, then we're in big trouble. So I think that we need him to play the way he played a couple years ago and stay on the field for at least 13, 14 games. So that's why I'm going with him. I just think that if he doesn't play well, we're going to be in big trouble. So yeah, those are my picks.
I think those are both great picks, Gary, and those are two guys that when Logan and I discussed this morning on the podcast, Those are names that came up in conversation, as did another one you mentioned. So thanks for the call. McLaurin is the guy that I brought up because I think when we talk about what he was last year to this team and, the rare times they struggled offensively, it was kind of like, where's Terry? And it's like, just get him the ball. Figure out how to get him the ball. He brings energy. He brings production. He brings points. And so I do think that he is a huge importance. Lattimore is an interesting one because I do think there is a way that the Commanders can get away with him not being awesome. Like if he's just good and like playable and other things go right, their pass rush is better. They're better. I mean, the number one thing for them defensively is be better against the run, which is why I have a hard time saying he's next, even if I do think like the upside play, as Gary said of Lattimore, where if he's really good, that changes their defense tremendously. That has a huge trickle-down effect on others. But the guy that I ultimately landed on, as in Logan, was Laramie Tunsil. His ability to be a force multiplier offensively, to just say, we don't have to worry about you. That's so important. And to say, we're gonna slide and get the help we need the other way. We can orient our protections in a certain way. I know he's known more as a pass protector than a run blocker, but he's a very, very good run blocker. So what that opens up for you in that way. Not to mention, Logan made this point, which I thought was really smart. By getting Tunsil, you've upgraded, hopefully, multiple positions on the offensive line. Hopefully, the kick down of Brandon Coleman to left guard is an upgrade at left tackle, Tunsil over Coleman, and Coleman's better than Allegretti. That also gives you another option in Allegretti, potentially at right tackle, in the competition to replace Sam Cosmi until Cosmi's back. And then at right tackle, you draft Connerly, and if you had done that anyway and he's got to play left tackle, you obviously don't get the upgrade at right tackle. Instead, you hopefully get an upgrade pretty quickly at right tackle. It might take him, Connerly, a couple games to be better than what Wiley was because Wiley was a really good run blocker. He's very experienced, and we know that Connerly is going to be coming in inexperienced and probably have some ups and downs, but there's just a huge trickle-down effect on what they can do offensively, not to mention that extra half a second that you might get opens up things for McLaurin. It opens up things for Samuel. It opens up things down the field and lets Jayden be a better version of himself without much improvement. Nevertheless, what we actually think Jayden could improve upon in year 2. 301-230-0980 is the phone number, 301-230-0980. Who's the most important non-Jayden Daniels Commander? We take more of your calls next. Coming up at 5 o'clock, the RFK Stadium deal might be hitting a speed bump. Just how big of a bump? You'll hear from Mark Seagraves, NBC4 reporter, who's been on top of this, and we'll give our takes as part of Not My Beat today. Then, Take Command, 5:30. We will dive into some Jayden Daniels discussion that is pretty interesting. What happens? Everyone's like, oh, what happens if he has a sophomore slump? We decided to flip the question on his head. Actually, one of our listeners did because it was a mailbag edition of the show. What happens if Jayden gets better? What does that look like? Find out at 5:30. All right, the question we're asking now, though, on a Vibe Check Tuesday at 301-230-0980 is, who is the best, or not, sorry, who is the best? Who is the most important non-Daniels commander? Anthony, this was originally your question. I just talked about a couple of folks. Who was your answer?
So my answer was going to be Laramie Tunsil, but I do have, if I was to choose a player on the defensive side of the ball, I would probably go with, because Marshawn was mentioned, but I think I would go with Bobby Wagner for the simple fact that this guy is responsible for calling the defense. He played on 98% of the snaps last year. He's in charge of, making sure everybody's where they're supposed to be. So I would think, a lot of the responsibility falls on his hat, but also I'm just thinking like our biggest problem last year was defending the run, stopping the run, and I think having somebody in the front seven on the defensive side of the ball will probably be the person I will lean towards too, and I think it would be Bobby.
So I agree that he's the most important defensive guy. So here's the thing, like generally speaking, about all this. Like, when you talk about most important, it's both how good is the player and then what happens if they're gone. And that's why a guy like Lattimore to me is really interesting. The how good is he? Like, if he's great, that changes the complexion of the defense. So he's high on the list. But what happens if he's not good? What happens if he is mediocre or even bad? And they're like, this guy's a nightmare. We're cutting him, right? We're absolute worst case scenario. Well, you probably shift Mikey back outside. Trey Amos, you hope, is not terrible too. And Noah Igbenogany goes back into the slot. Or Jonathan Jones goes into the slot. And that's certainly not ideal, but I don't know how bad it's playable, right? It's playable. If Bobby Wagner goes out, Jordan McGee is the next guy up. And do I think Jordan McGee in the long term could be a good player? Yes. Do I think Jordan McGee could have a positive impact for the Commanders this year in a limited role? Yes. Does he have the mental encyclopedia of Bobby Wagner to be able to get them in the right call all the time? To, hey, Duran, scoot this way. Hey, check this coverage. Hey, do this, do that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because he hasn't been playing at an all-pro level as a human supercomputer for 15 years like Bobby Wagner has. He's a rookie, or was a rookie last year who missed a ton of time and is now going to come in as a second-year guy and be an apprentice. And he can be smart. He can pay attention in meetings. He can have paid attention in meetings last year. He could even be a future savant that we don't even know yet, that he's actually like a genius, and they can't wait for him to get out there once Bobby's done. But he doesn't have the file yet that Bobby has. And so to me, he's the guy on defense, he being Wagner, is the guy that is the most irreplaceable. I think when you talk about irreplaceable, Quan's an interesting one because they just don't have depth to me at safety. So he's an interesting one for a different reason, but I also don't think like Quan's going to play so well on the upside that he qualifies for like most important. But yeah, to me, offensively, it's Tunsil, it's McLaurin. I think Ertz is a good one that Logan brought up this morning. And then you get to the defensive side, and it's Wagner, then probably Lattimore because their depth is pretty good along the D-line. Like Payne is somewhere in there because his upside is so high. Kinlaw, his upside is so high. But I think it's probably Wagner, Lattimore. Frankie deserves to be somewhere in there because the play style that he brings, the violence that he plays with, the speed, the intensity, like that radiates.
I mean, he can just be the heart, though. The heart of the team.
Right. And so if he's not out there, what's missing? A lot. And then Mikey's another interesting one, too, because he's got to have a big year, and he's also such a great connector from like a real leadership standpoint connects the entire defense. He also connects the team. That if he were to disappear for 4 months with an injury and not be around, like I think there's a real hit on the field and off the field that would be hard to measure, but would certainly be noticed.
Yeah, I think Mikey's a good one, especially playing in the slot. Like, you're tasked with doing a whole bunch of stuff. You're defending a receiver that has the entire field that he can use, and then also having to come up and play the run. And you see the guys like Marlon Humphrey, the Kenny Moores of the world, and even Jalen Ramsey, like how important they were in their star roles. So I think Mikey could definitely be a good one. And the fact that, he's played outside and now he's going to be playing inside. So he's going to have experience playing both kind of thing.
No doubt about it. All right. That is that. Anybody else that you want to mention that you think is worth it?
I really think Laramie was the most important one. Considering like we gave up so much, and then also the fact that you don't have to do as much in terms of like chipping and things of that nature. So
yeah, Laramie was definitely my number one guy that I thought of. I think the Ertz one is so good though that Logan brought up. He just kind of brought it up at the end. He's like, by the way, Ertz is another good answer. And like, I think like 2/3 of his catches went for first downs last year. He also led the NFL. Like the Commanders were the best fourth down team basically in NFL history.
And how many was to Ertz though?
Yeah, Ertz was the best fourth down receiver in the league.
Yeah, no question.
He was a monster on third down. He was great in the red zone. So like all the key situations, Ertz was the guy. And I think that then becomes in terms of importance, like, okay, well, if he were to be out, how ready is Ben Sinnott to be a lot better than he was last year? How significant is the drop off? And my guess is it's probably pretty significant still. Ben's is a different kind of player. He's a more vertical threat. Like they would have to change the offense. And I don't know who they have in the Zach role. And you probably have to run some of that stuff for like Debo. You probably have to run some of that stuff for some of your receivers. The problem is they don't get the matchups that Zach gets because they're receivers. And Zach, well, he gets treated like a receiver sometimes, is ultimately still a tight end. So it definitely plays some games with the offense on that front. All right, when we get back, off the field, Commanders, or actually, where is the field, Commanders? RFK Stadium. The Commanders say, hey, we gave you a July 15th deadline. D.C. City Council, we're going to need this done. D.C. City Council says we need more time. So where does that leave us? Mark Seagraves was on with JP and B. Mitch yesterday, and there's been more reporting on this in the time since. So we will get you up to date. We'll use some of Mark. We'll use some of the posts reporting, and we'll get you caught up on the day's top story next for Not My Beat here on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Coming up at 5:30. Check the clock. What time is it again? Right. 5:30. We will let you hear from Logan and me. Great conversation this morning about Jayden Daniels and kind of where the offense can go in 2025 if things go well. Obviously, in 2030, the Commanders are hoping to go to RFK Stadium, which brings us to a non-traditional version of today's Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
So the whole origin story of this segment was that I used to be a beat reporter who covered the Commanders, and now I'm not. So we get other people on who are experts. Well, today's top story, we're going to cover with the help of a couple of different experts, some reporting from the folks at the Washington Post, and some sound bites from our guy Mark Seagraves, NBC4 investigative reporter, who was on with B. Mitch and Finley yesterday. We start with the Post. Where the headline says D.C. City Council members need more time, or D.C. Council members say stadium approval is likely, but they need more time. It's a story by Jenny Gathright with contributions by Megan Flynn. Megan's been on the show before. But here's how the story starts, and this is the context of which we operate today. D.C. council members are working toward approving a football stadium for the Washington Commanders at the shuttered RFK Stadium site, but probably not by Mayor Muriel E. Bowser's deadline in July, several lawmakers said this week. The prospect of the council delaying a vote on the $3.7 billion deal has the team, quote-unquote, outraged, Bowser said this week, and, quote, sacrifices our exclusive seat at the table and $2.7 billion in private investment. Bowser has wanted the council to approve the deal with the Commanders as part of the council's fiscal year 2026 budget process, and the Commanders said this week that any delay beyond that threatens the team's construction timeline. Okay, so that is the facts on the ground, or I should say the stated positions, because the council, to close this out, says, hey, there's $1 billion of taxpayer money in this. We want more time to review the particulars. And the city is like, we don't have time. And the council is like, well, we don't know. And by the way, I think the other interesting part of this is a lot of people on the council side are like, we don't know the particulars, so we don't know even where to go. Like, you're throwing these numbers at us. We don't know where they came from. So we don't know how to make tweaks to make this thing better. And the council and the city is like, well, and the team is like, we'll work on whatever you want to make it better. And so the city, I think, has done a tremendous job, and by the city, I mean the mayor's office and the team, of putting the council, frankly, in a terrible spot. They have played the politics of this very, very well. This is very popular. Everyone wants to get it done. They are pushing to get it done. And by doing this in the way they have, whether this was the intent or not, they have kind of set up the council to be in a no-win situation by simply doing their due diligence and jobs. While there are certainly a lot of people that will appreciate them trying to get more details so that they then can make it a better deal for the city, they're now the brakes, and that's a bad place to be if you are playing the political game. So yesterday, Seagraves on with JP was asked the simple question of, like, is this actually a substantive squabble or is this a political squabble?
So it is no secret that Mayor Bowser and Chairman Mendelson don't play well in the sandbox. They don't get along on a lot of things. On some things, we're lucky in D.C. in the sense that it's basically a Democratic city, a liberal city, and everybody agrees on most things. And so there's not a lot of quibbling over most things. But when you get down into minutia and budgets and how money is spent, that's where they start to have disagreements. Mendelson and Bowser will be up for re-election. Mendelson could face some serious opposition this time around. And so, it is unfortunate that they don't have the best of relationships. The chairman has hired Robert Bobb, who was a former city administrator under Tony Williams years ago and has enjoyed many, many government contracts since, and now he's been hired by the council to kind of mediate this landscape between the mayor and the chairman and the commanders. And I expect what you'll see is that Mendelson will make some tweaks, particularly around the community benefits package, which was very vague in the original contract. Again, when you look back at the baseball thing, after the no vote by Linda Kropp, they came back and the community benefits package had the youth baseball academy that we still have over in Ward 7 that Vince Gray was able to get out of those negotiations. So that's what I would look for. The commanders are prepared to prop up the community benefits package. I think if they start toying with things of real substance that would cost the commanders money, like one of the things that I've been pointing to from day one are these seat licensing agreements, man. And I got to tell you, your listeners, if they plan on being season ticket holders for the commanders when they come to Washington, D.C., and they find out they're going to have to pay a seat licensing fee that could be anywhere from thousands to tens of thousands of dollars up front just for the privilege of buying you tickets at another cost, that's going to make a lot of people very, very unhappy. And so, but it's a hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue that the team is counting on, just like naming rights for the stadium. These are things that the city owns because they own the land and the stadium that they're giving to the commanders. So you start tinkering with those big ticket items, and that could be problematic. But again, if I'm betting on this, at the end of the day, I think 2030 we're kicking off at RFK Stadium.
So that was Mark Seagraves with B. Mitch and Finley yesterday. The other big item on the docket potentially is rent. There is a provision in this current proposal that the commanders will pay $1 in rent. That's not that you heard me correctly. $1 in rent. And I'm curious if the city's like, well, what if we made that? I mean, surely the rent is probably worth millions, but even thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, something that does move the budget, but it creates real revenue for the city without moving the bottom line or the top line number. Because, like, yes, 100,000. Let's say that $1 comes $100,000, right? This is just fun with numbers here. If that becomes $100,000, that is 1/10 of a million. And we're talking about $2.7 billion. And remember, 1,000 millions is a billion. So we are talking a minuscule percentage of money. But that's still $100,000 for the city. Nevertheless, if it's $500,000 or $1 million. So I think that is going to be something that the city's got to look at, and certainly certain council members have already flagged and is reported in the Post is like, hey, this doesn't exactly sit right with me. Something to keep an eye on in this situation. One more for Seagraves here. He was asked about the possibility of a delay. And this is something that I think is a very real threat by the commanders and by Bowser, but also could be a bit of an empty hammer hanging over their heads. Ultimately, we know the team wants to be at RFK. So if they have to delay a little bit and there's still a window to get this done before the 2030 season, then it seems like there should be more wiggle room than is being presented. But if realistically they cannot delay and they're saying, hey, it's 2030 at RFK, or we're going to start, get a deal done quickly with Maryland, and we can start building on that land tomorrow because we own it, and the construction timeline works to have us a new home by 2030, then this does feel like the biggest threat in terms of this deal actually getting done. So how realistic is the idea that the council is going to get more time here?
Right now, we don't have we know, for instance, Brooke Pinto has come out and said uncategorically, no delay. Do the whole package on July 15th. You had Zach Parker come out and say the exact opposite. And his, I think, was the most telling statement, because what he went so far as to say is that he is open to delaying it until September or October to vote. And see, this is why it's so important for these meetings to be open to the public, and why the public should care about these open meeting laws, is because we have no idea what these 12 people talked about behind those closed doors, because we weren't allowed to be there. So we don't know what the chairman proposed for the council to vote on. We know what some of them have said coming out of that meeting, and the most telling, again, is Zach Parker saying he's open to a delay that could be as long as September, October. That becomes a real delay. When you talk about construction costs, construction deadlines, timelines, delaying it a few weeks or a month isn't going to kill anybody. You build those kinds of delays into your plan. Delaying it by 2, 3, 4 months, that's a lot, and a lot can change. Look at tariffs, right? Every day the cost of construction materials goes up and down because of the threat of tariffs. And so the commanders definitely do not want a delay that would go into the fall before, knowing that it's going to be and not even knowing until then that it was going to be approved. So the next time we'll get a real keen idea of what's going to happen will be this Wednesday. On Wednesday, the council holds its public hearing on what is called the Budget Support Act. And that's where all the nitty-gritty stuff is. And so we'll learn a lot more based on the council members' questions and public statements. They won't take any votes on this day, but it'll be a public hearing, and we'll hear from public witnesses. I don't know if we'll hear from the commanders, and I can tell you the mayor has not been invited to testify. Her chief of staff has, but kind of a thumb in her eye, the chairman has decided not to invite the mayor for the first time ever to testify on her own budget. But Wednesday we'll have a better idea of where the 12 council members stand.
So tomorrow, a big day, of course, the biggest day, July 15th, that's the deadline. And that is a real deadline, by the way. That is not a fake. Now, they can agree to amend it, the commanders and the mayor's office. But if there is not a done deal by July 15th with city council approval, the commanders can reopen negotiations, and specifically Maryland would be hopping in saying, hey, let's get this done. We love having you. We would appreciate the things you're going to do if you leave for RFK, but we'd like to have you more. And that's when the pressure turns back up on D.C. and for the commanders to get something done. So we'll have more on this tomorrow and Friday. We're off on Thursday, but we'll have more on this as the week goes after that meeting. Maybe even check in with Seagraves on it, and there will be more later this week. For the full interview with Seagraves on B. Mitch and Finley, search B. Mitch and Finley wherever you get your podcasts. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, some story time from Anthony from the weekend. Our boy rode a train for the first time. How'd it go? We'll discuss next. the Hoffman Show coming up in 10 minutes. Logan Paulson and I talking about what happens if Jayden Daniels gets better this year. What does that even look like after he was a MVP caliber player last year? We will tell you at 5:30 and what it means for the Commanders. 6 o'clock. What are we doing at 6 o'clock again, Anthony?
At 6
It'd be really cool if I just, occasionally would, instead of asking that out loud, just pull up the rundown and, be an adult who hosts a radio show for a living. What are we doing at 6 o'clock? Producer of the show.
That's a great question, but now I got the answer for you, Craig. So at 6 o'clock, we will be talking about, the NBA Finals roster. We'll be doing a roster exercise.
Oh, yeah. I've been waiting to do this. I'm pretty excited about it. I had a thought I've had this thought multiple times in the last couple of weeks watching the Thunder and the Pacers, but it's like, where do all these dudes come from? And is it different than most other NBA Finals rosters? And especially in recent memory, and is this the new normal? So we'll go inside that thought exercise at 6 o'clock. Talk a little Kevin Durant trade stuff in the 6 o'clock hour as well. But we start now, or not start now, we continue now with story time with producer Anthony Haney. Anthony, when we last left our hero, it's you. You're the hero. It was about 6:50 something on Friday night. We had just Rebecca Blacked our way into the weekend, and you had an Uber that was ready to take you to Union Station and catch a train. Our show ended at 6:55. Your train was at 7:12.
Yep.
And how'd it go?
So actually went pretty well. I rushed out of here downstairs to my Uber that was on L Street, and he was already facing the direction to get on the highway. So I'm like, all right, dude, like that's step one. Step two, we had to get in the car, and he sees me running. He's outside of his car, like cleaning the window. I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking like, all right, dude, we got to go. And then he asked me like, are we behind? I said, yeah, we're behind. We should have been there 5 minutes ago. He was like, all right, bet, say no more. When I tell you,
Understood the mission.
When I tell you he strapped his seatbelt in and was gone, I said, this is my guy. Extra stars, and I'm going to give you a tip.
Six stars and a tip.
Yes. So we end up pulling up to Union Station. I want to say, so when before I left, it said it was going to take us about like 10 minutes or like 12 minutes to get to Union Station. He got me there in about 7. He got me there in about 7 minutes. He dropped me off right in front of Union Station at the crosswalk. I literally just jogged across it because I was there. So I'm like, I got 10 minutes to spare. I know where I'm going. So I jog across. There's people setting up, political stuff. So, I just bypassed that.
Yeah.
And then I walk in and I just walk to the back. And then I find an attendant and I'm like, yo, I'm going to New York. Where do I go? And she was like, 112. I said, no, 191. I said, yep. And then she points me there. I walk around. There was not a line of people, Craig. So I think that long line of people. Boarded. Yeah, I think they were already on the train. And they were, because when I got on the train, I just kept walking from train to train.
Which I told you, right? I told you.
Yeah.
And by the way, it is important to point out at this point in the story, since Anthony just dove all the way in, this is Anthony's first time ever on an Amtrak train.
Yes.
So I told him, if you're going to be cutting it close, get on the first car and then walk your way back inside the train. That way you're on and you just got to find a seat.
Yeah. So I'm on the train. I'm walking. And to be honest, you make a great point, because as I'm walking, from train to train, the doors like keep hitting me. And I'm just like, all right, bro, like what's up with these doors? But I guess there's like a timer on them. You got to like press the button.
Yeah. You kept getting hit by the door? That's actually hilarious.
Yeah.
It's never a thing I've heard happen before.
Nah, they were hitting me, and I'm just like, all right, I want to fight back too. So I finally get to my seat, and I'm probably on like the 5th or like 6th train, because everybody had already filled up the first couple of trains.
Yeah.
I sit down, and it's probably like 7:08, 7:09. Mind you, I got there like 7:04, and I sat down at 7:09. So it was a pretty quick turnaround. And then I texted Craig. I had enough time before we pulled off to text Craig and say, I made it. And then I want to say at 7:13 we pulled off. So
nice.
Getting there was not bad.
That's amazing. I love that for you. How was the actual train ride? Did you enjoy it?
Now, I will say, so the train ride I didn't mind. The only part about the train ride that I hated, the connection for my phone was just terrible. I was trying to watch the game.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get on my email.
The Wi-Fi.
Like,
which,
yeah,
like,
which is all bad.
How much, this is like when people complain about Wi-Fi in the air. Like, I try not to get mad. There are times I've gotten mad at in-flight Wi-Fi situations, and it's more of like, hey, if you said this thing was going to happen, or if, like, I paid for it and then it doesn't work, like, I just want to make sure I get my refund. But I'm only going to get so mad. I'm flying in a metal tube at 30,000 feet, and you don't have the internet? How dare you, right? Same thing on a train. Like, we're rolling at 200 miles an hour or whatever, however fast a train goes through the backwoods of America, getting from city to city in a pretty efficient time. Now, it's not as good as the high-speed rail, and that's a whole different conversation that they got in, like, Europe and Japan. And if it was like the stuff they got in Japan, we could be in New York in an hour and a half. Like, that'd be sweet.
That'd be tough.
Be in Philly in like 30 minutes. But the point is, like, it's still pretty good. And the fact that we're on a train, like, how mad are we going to be that there isn't Wi-Fi? But because the routes are through a lot of wooded areas where there's not a lot of people living, I should have warned you. The Wi-Fi is not great. Or the cell service, either one, not good.
Yeah. So that was really my only complaint. I didn't know where I was, like, several times, so I kept having to do, like, are we getting close? And then he finally showed me there's a map that tells you all the stops. So that made my commute back a little bit more, stress-free. But going up there was, like, it was pretty smooth.
And then you were up there so you could get styled.
Yes. I went up there. I got a couple of fits. I got some pieces that I got to pair with some of the stuff that I already have. But I'm excited for Paris. And I don't really post a lot, but I think when I'm in Europe, I'm going to get a couple of posts off.
Yeah, you definitely. At least take some pictures, whether they're for you or for the internet. That's between you and you. Yeah. But you should definitely take photos and capture it. But yeah, I'm excited for you, bro. How's your French coming along?
It's coming pretty good. Pretty good. I think. Maybe not. I don't know. Hey, look, I still got 9 days. I got 9 days.
You're going by yourself, right?
I am indeed.
You're solo traveling to Paris?
Yes, sir.
Un table pour moi. A table for me.
Okay. Yeah, I need to write that one down so I can rehearse it.
L'addition, s'il te plaît. The check, please.
Yep.
Or just l'addition. What else did I could go through another couple key phrases.
How do you say thank you?
Merci.
Oh, yeah, merci beaucoup. Okay.
Yeah,
that is cool.
That was so American. Merci beaucoup. Hey, whatever works. They also mostly speak English. And
I struggle rolling my R's.
They will also have menus in English, which is also very helpful.
Yeah.
And just don't be a hero. Don't ask for the French.
Yeah, I just won't.
Français or anglais? Or anglais?
English, please.
English. Thanks. All right. I cannot wait for story time when you get back, by the way.
All right, one last thing. On my ride, so my train back to D.C. was at 4:09. It was the first train out of New York. Craig, when I tell you I got to the airport, and I didn't see a long line of people. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. They weren't. They may have been sitting down. But I'm looking for everybody. I go down this escalator, and I get onto a platform, and there's nobody out there. I'm thinking I'm, like, stuck down there. They're, like, chains on doors, and, like, I'm like, and the escalator that I came down didn't have an escalator up. So I had to go back through the door that I came through, run up the escalator backwards, and then I finally saw my group of people that I was supposed to be in line waiting with lining up. So I was like, wow, that was fascinating.
We'll unpack that in the commercial break. Logan and I talk about Jayden Daniels next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Take Command podcast I do with, of course, 10-year NFL veteran Logan Paulson. Taped a mailbag this morning. We got a really interesting question about the Commanders quarterback, and I'm going to let you hear our answers here on the Hoffman Show.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulson and former Commander reporter Craig Hoffman.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Take Command podcast. I'm Craig Hoffman. He is Logan. We are in full off-season mode. Logan, we're the mailbag questions. Let's get those questions in. Now's the time to get the really fun ones in. Nothing pressing, hopefully, outside of a potential Terry McLaurin contract whenever that comes in, and we got that over the next. But other than that, no real pressing news. So to the calendar to do podcasts on whatever it is that we so please, and really, frankly, whatever it is you so please. And so that's where we are here on a mailbag edition of the show. We're also going to tackle our in the NFC East, which is an annual show that we do. We'll rank the quarterbacks, we'll rank the running backs all the way down on offense, then do a defense episode as well. So those are coming over the next as well. We start today, though, on a mailbag show, Logan, with a question from Giles with a J. Spelled with a J. Kind of like that. He goes, love the podcast. Question for you and Logan. There's been so much talk about what a sophomore season might look like for JD5, but this such tremendous work ethic and capability to learn and improve. Why are we not what the season looks like if he progresses in a meaningful way? This is what I expect. Wondering what you think that scenario looks like. Thanks, Giles. I think this question is really fascinating, Logan, because one, for a guy who played at a top 5 MVP kind of level last year, what does improvement realistically look like? Like, what are the areas where he can improve? And if he does that, what's the offense look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think the reason people talk about the regression quite a bit is because historically that seems like a more quote unquote likely scenario. And the other thing, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and at some point I want to bring up is he might play better and the team plays worse and it feels like a regression. So I think that's the other is like, I think you might see a regression in terms of his base statistics. Like I think I would assume probably goes down at this next year. Maybe turnovers goes up, who knows? But in terms of him getting better, areas for him to get better, I think that's the thing that becomes really tough about the question because he did play so well. He made excellent decisions. His footwork's excellent. He's getting the ball out of his hands quickly. So if I were to point to one thing, one area of the offense in general, and this is probably outside of his control, calling it, and this is maybe a larger perspective offensive improvement, right, is the kind of the throws between the 12 and 18-yard area of the field, specifically over the middle of the field. I think this offense is to take the next step. I think that's an area you really have to see it grow. I think, they're really good at the quick game. They're really good with the RPOs. They're really good at the snap kind of reads and other stuff. But for the offense to kind of be full in a way that I think will allow him to grow, I think it's that middle area of the field that needs to develop. And that's an area where it's like you got to develop your receivers. You get those throws really well. So I think that if I was going to pinpoint one thing where I think if he improves, that's an area he can improve in. And that's an area where the offense in general can improve. And that's the one I would click to. And if you can do that, I think it makes it so much more devastating. And I don't know exactly how they get to it. Is it off play action pass? Is it off, the 3-step or 5-step work from the gun? Like, I don't know exactly how you get there and what he, but that's kind of what I'd zoom like in terms of answering this question.
So let me just ask you a kind of a wider football question, because there are a lot of folks, I think, in football media that are people who kind of obsess over that area of the field.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, if you're not hitting deep dig at 15 yards, then you're not a quarterback. And it's like, well, like you can. There's different ways to skin a cat here. Like, relax a little bit on the idea to do it that way. Otherwise, you're somehow lesser than. And like, these touchdowns down the outside or count for 5 points instead of 6. Or these guys talk about it. So why is that area of the field so important that so many smart people think it's kind of the key or highest level of quarterbacking?
Yeah, I think it's really important because I think when you look at numbers, there's less variables there, right? It's like if you think about in cover three and you're dealing with a corner, right? So I am seeing a corner and I'm making a throw there, right? If I'm throwing a comeback, I'm seeing with a corner and maybe a hook player or a flat player, I got to navigate and throw that. If I really want to open up the field and stress the defense, not only in terms of, we're talking levels here, but think about it, the ball moving towards the hashes, towards the middle of the field. I really want to stress every ounce of the defense across that, 56 yards that they, in terms of width of the field. I have to be able to work in the middle of the field, right? And I think the other thing about those throws outside the hash is they tend to be a percentage, right? Goes, everyone loves throwing a fade, but they are a low percentage throw. Those deep comebacks are very tough to throw. Like, you need a big arm, need a really dynamic laser beam getting out there. So in terms of like increasing offensive efficiency, if I got a quarterback that can work the middle of the field, work kind of, I say 12 to 18 yards, like that's becomes such a more offense to manage. I think you look at, and again, this is maybe the data set is maybe biased here, but if you look at Tom Brady, look at Peyton Manning, look at Drew Brees, look at Lamar Jackson last year, look at Josh Allen up in Buffalo. Like, as their games have improved, that area of the field that has kind of come to light, surface point or a flash point offenses. And again, there's a million ways to get there, right? There's a million ways to kind of attack that. Everyone does it a little bit differently. I think another great example is Jared Goff in Detroit. Like, one of the things they did is they created to make it simple for him to attack those levels of the field. And he's a quarterback. He did a great job of that. That's one reason why Jalen Hurts is kind of in a different tier quarterback to really develop that element of his game. So the offense always feels a little bit up and down. There's a little bit of variance there because he's always relying on these kind of big throws down the sideline to A.J. Brown, or the big post, or the explosive play, these kind of shot plays down the field. And again, I think national media wise, when you watch the Philadelphia Eagles play, you do feel an element of streakiness to the pass game. And that was covered up last year because they ran the football so well. So offense to be better, it doesn't have, it's when you're just looking at a straight quote unquote deficiency or area where they can get better. That's one where you kind of say, okay, hey, this one seems the most straightforward. And if you want to see him kind of go from like a top 10 quarterback to a top 5 quarterback, or a top 12 quarterback to a top 5 quarterback, like, this is the area that I think needs to happen, because it adds so much more diversity in terms of concepts, so much more stress in terms of what the defense has to defend. And so that's why I think people hone in on this, is saying, like, it just makes your offense down to down more efficient, more difficult to deal with.
So, in other words, like, there's the second order effects of the defensive stress, but on a first order direct basis, it is a more efficient way to get a lot of yards. In other words, you get percentage than your go balls, your perimeter, deep comebacks for the same amount of yardage. And obviously, way to move the ball down the field. And that's also, I think, how you ultimately close the gap between, say, what Lamar statistically, or Josh Allen, or Pat Mahomes here, because he was great. By no means am I saying he was anything but he had 3,500 yards, 3,568 as the yardage total. And it's like, okay, well, if he's got that, and guys in the league are doing 4,500 yards, grow, where is that yard? And so I think the other area that is one of the answers of the question, and would obviously subbing some yards for others here, but he still scrambles a little quickly, I think, or a little quicker than he will when he reaches to the peak of his powers, which is scary to think. Like, again, to be very clear, if Jayden Daniels ever gets better and just plays at the level he did last year, are going to be fine. They're going to win a lot of football games, and you could win a Super Bowl with the level of quarterbacking he played last year. That's crazy. Rookies aren't supposed to be able to do that.
Right.
But to the point, and to the question, like, what happens if he gets better? How does he get better? Pocket movement, for as great as he is getting out of the pocket, little subtle moves within the pocket to find a little bit more space and be able to hit some of those balls talking about. They need an extra second to develop, or extra half second, extra quarter second to develop, or the ability to just hit a check down and get a guy in space. Like, some of those little that can make life a little easier for him as a passer versus having to earn it as a runner. And maybe he scrambles for 7, but could he have slid up in the pocket on a deep late, breaker, or Debo breaking free in a scramble situation for 20? And so, 7 yards is a scramble, especially if it's 6, or God forbid 3rd and 6, excellent. 20 yards, better. And so that, I think, is the area that comes to mind for me, is from a purely inside the Jayden Daniels rollable bubble, the in-pocket movement, the intra-pocket movement, I think is the skill set that he continued to do and will take him to a next level. And by the way, true for Lamar, same was true for Josh, same for Mahomes. This is what happens from guys that are really good athletes that can do a lot of stuff on the move to becoming the top flight quarterbacks they are in the league.
Yeah, 100%. And so I do think that's an element of that, passing game, right? Is understanding not only like how to shift and buy time in the pocket, but how to anticipate some of those throws. How to throw to space maybe is a better way to. Really hard skill to teach. It's a really hard skill to learn. But I do think he's a guy, like in terms of the question, that a guy that if he can he seems like he's enough, he seems like he preps enough, he seems like he's self-aware enough that he can improve. And you do see some of that anticipation. You do see some of his leading receivers, the accuracy in the quick game and some of the stuff he did last year. And it's not like they never. There are examples of that last year. Like I think about the dig to Terry versus Arizona. It's a great throw over the middle of the field. There was one to Luke in the same drive where he's kind of breaking over the middle of the field on the seam. Like he did do stuff like that this season, no doubt about it. But I think just upping the frequency of it and then what that does to the offense. Because again, those deep digs, right? First downs, their advantages, like all those things. And then because again, and I think part of the reason I've honed in on this specifically in conjunction with the pocket movement, like you mentioned, Greg, is because he played so well last year. There's not a lot of areas to his game that can drastically improve. Like if you said, oh, can he get better at quick game? I'm like, maybe, but it's going to be really hard to find that inch there because he's already at 90%. Can he get better in terms of decision making as a scrambler? Probably, but that was pretty efficient last year too. Can he get more efficient on the deep ball? Yeah, but are we being realistic with those expectations? So what's the area?
I don't know how much better you can actually get a deep ball thrower.
Yeah, 100%. And so that's where it kind of comes back to this thing where it's what's the area of the offense in general is going to be the most important. And it feels like it's that area. I could calling the offense last year without, but I do think if you could find more chunk plays right over the middle of the field and that kind of yardage mark, it's going to make it easier. Like we've talked about this before in terms of regressions and whatever. It's hard to go on 18-play drives. It's very, very hard to do that. And they did that. Or is there a way to limit some of that by finding some of these chunks? Yeah. Now you don't want to sing this improvement at the detriment of stuff that you did well last year. That's true, but I do think this is the thing. This is the moment. This is the monolith, the obelisk that they need to figure out. And watching some of the stuff they did in OTAs, watching some of the stuff in minicamp. Obviously, they're improving at it, but does that translate to the thing that I would kind of keep an eye on for the improvement? And if he does improve, the answer is you have a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. So whatever you want.
That big 4 becomes a big 5. That's what happens.
I think we were talking about before, but it's if he improves, I kind of laughed at the question when you first asked it at the election meeting, but it's we just become really good forever. As long as he's a quarterback, that's the result. You know what I mean? So if he doesn't move, great. Because like you said, he played well enough to win a Super Bowl last year, right? He could get you a playoff game, but I think people need to understand and appreciate how. I think that's why people talk about regression all the time. He was so good last year. Part of me is where do you go? How do you get better when that was the level of performance you had? And so that's why we're kind of feeling. I feel nitpicky here talking about this stuff, but that's because it was so good last year.
Right. But that's also the difference between being quarterback 5 and being one of those big 4, joining Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, and Jackson. For what offense, you probably go from top 10 to top 6. And I think the best can the offense get into the top 5 is how efficient is the running game. But, the O-line play is both pass and running. That's probably a bigger figure than if Jayden were to improve. That's the other thing is all this stuff is related, which brings us to one more question about the offense, Jayden and Cliff, that I wanted to throw in this section real quick. This one's from Matt Logan. It says, hey, I got a question for you. And Logan, I'll take command. I should stop reading intros like that. It's no kidding. That's why we're reading the question. Everyone is talking about a potential, and I swear to God, the same question, but it starts basically the same. Talking about a potential sophomore Jayden, and you two have mentioned how defense has caught on to RG3 and our zone read off after his rookie year. Cliff clearly brought innovation to the NFL last season with his use of tempo. So my question, now that defensive coordinators have a year of tape, will they be able to scheme better against our high-tempo offense next year? Or is tempo a viable tactic for the long term and potentially creating an NFL-wide trend? Love the show. Matt.
Is it going to create an NFL-wide trend? I don't think so. But I do think it's one of those tools that become really to manage. Like zone read, like it's easy. You get on a chalkboard, you draw something up, you say, what is zone read actually doing? It's basically saying we have to account for the quarterback. So how do we account for the quarterback? How do we make that decision hard for the quarterback? And now you watch any play in college football. Like every defense has an excellent plan for zone read. They have an excellent plan for zone read. They have an excellent plan for PO, and the plays become less. When you look at who was the OC head coach in Jacksonville last year? He was the head coach in
Peterson.
Peterson, right? He was one of the reasons that offense initially was so successful with the Eagles is because it was a RPO-based offense, and people did not have a good plan. But as defensive coordinators have gotten more familiar with it, they can figure it out. Are they going to have a tool or a solution themselves in better positions? Sure. But is tempo something you're always going to have to negotiate with as a defensive coordinator? Yeah, there's a reason that offenses get more efficient in 2 minutes, right? Because defenses get simpler, right? The offenses can keep a certain amount of complexity, and defenses have to get some type of call. And if your quarterback's good enough, they're going to figure it out. I don't know, and I'm not a smart enough guy. And there's probably a dude in a dark room for one of these teams that's like thinking of all sorts of different ways to do it. I don't know. Maybe you call things from the sideline. You have a version of your hurry up kind of signal offense if you're a different team, like, hey, these 4 coverages and these 4 pressures off of hand signals, and that's how we're going to deal with it. That would be problematic potentially, but that's also a ton of work. Kind of like when teams play college option teams, right? You don't enough to have a solution for it, right? Everybody runs RPO. Everyone runs. We're the team in the NFL last year. The Commanders were, right? So does it behoove anybody who's not in our division to have a comprehensive plan for us? Probably not, right? Because it just takes so much time and so many man hours, so much sweat equity to have a decent plan for this. So will Philly have a solution? Probably. Do they need one because they played us so well last year? I don't know. Does New York figure something out? Maybe. But I think it's one of those things that it's kind of a core tenet of offensive football is tempo. Going slow, going fast, there's different benefits. But it's just hard to negotiate because it forces you outside of your comfort zone in a way that those other things we did, the other examples the question asked don't.
Right. So I have a couple of thoughts based off of the question and based off what you just said. And Quinn actually talked about this on Chris Long's show when he did the interview a couple weeks ago at this point. He's like, we do it more than anyone else, and I like having that curveball. Like, I like being different. And so being different than everyone else is part of the thing here. Like, part of the reason some of the zone read or pick your trend of the last 40 offensive football, some of the reasons that those become less effective is exactly what you just said. Everybody else does them. And RPO, like, okay, everyone's doing it. We're used to it. But the other thing is it's hard to do. Like, the reason that some of the teams can still do that stuff at a high level, like the Eagles still run a ton of RPO. It still works because Jalen Hurts is really good at it. Like, he make the right read, and the defense fundamentally is in a bind based off of that. But if you can shut that stuff down, the question becomes, the next counter is, are you good enough at that? Because every defensive decision opens up another hole. Like, ultimately, NFL defense is playing whack-a-mole. And you just have to hope that the quarterback isn't good enough to reach, mole pops around. And that's kind of going back to the first thing that we talked about here. The problem for other teams is Daniels is amazing at whack-a-mole. Yeah. Okay, fine. You shut down the read option. You shut down the RPO. Okay, well, now we're just going to go quick game. Okay, you shut that down. Okay, well, now he's going to hit you over the top with the deep ball. Like, there's nothing he doesn't do well. And that fundamentally is the problem. Now you speed that process up. We're at a speed that he can handle from a decision-making standpoint, and that simplifies your defense, and that's why it's so devastating. Because defenses, even if 4 coverages and 4 calls, okay, fine. He'll learn the 4. Understand, Cliff is also really smart, and they'll get on the sideline in 5 minutes and figure out your stuff. And so that's the problem is, like, whatever club he needs to hit, he's got it bag. And at that point, it's just how long till he figures you out.
And this is a really interesting kind of philosophical football question, and it's the one of verbiage, like how you communicate your offense. And I do think like people, I'm a very verbose background with Kyle and Sean, right? They used to love long play calls, telling everybody what to do, different formations, different adjustments. And as an offensive coordinator, it gives you more control. But all of a sudden, when it's time to play fast or play with tempo, it's really challenging that style of offense to fit a hurry up environment. And so one of the things I think about Cliff is he's built this, and I haven't talked to him, and I'd love to talk to him about this. Like, and it's something like I'm trying to like catch him in the hallway and be like, hey man, like, what are you thinking here? But like one of the things is like they've obviously constructed the offense where just get to I want to say it feels like they can get to about 90% of their offense through hurry up, which is such a unique paradigm because most teams have a package. This is our hurry up. This is our 2 minute. This is patchy, right? Like kind of your hurry up, muddle huddle type deal. But this feels like you can get to so much diversity. So even though I said there's like a 3 package thing, but I can get to 3x1, I can get to 4x1, I can get to empty, I can get to heavy, all in the paradigm of the offense. Whatever hand signal that they're using to get information in the play called line of scrimmage. And I think defensively, like that's complicated. That's a structural offense. Like, so for example, I'm an OC out of high school, and I love when the head coach comes up to me and says, hey man, we got to play faster. Because it seems like a simple solution. Oh, hey, well, we'll do this. But then you have to think of how to construct this offense that you've built and apply it to a hurry up environment, hand signals, code words, changing code words every week.
Also personnel.
Man,
like
it becomes crazy.
This is the benefit of having guys like Eck and Ertz. Pick your receiver that can line up inside or outside. That can line up in the backfield or as split out. They can line up as a tight end or split out. Like they have built a comprehensive ecosystem to do this. Starting play caller, but then going down to all of the other things, which also makes it very hard to replicate.
Yeah, and so I think that's ultimately what you come back to is if this was the zone read. If I can explain zone read to you in 30 seconds, I can think of a solution in 5 minutes. If I can run my whole offense and hurry up, how do I hurry up my defense? Like I can't do it. It's just too much diversity. It's too much flexibility. And plus you got a quarterback who's a baller, man. He does a lot of good stuff at the line of scrimmage, which I think is something that we didn't talk about at the beginning. But his ability at the line of scrimmage to kind of get in the right play, find the he wants is devastating. And when you look at it, they're not going like 1,000 miles an hour, but what they're good at is getting the line of scrimmage, getting lined up, and forcing the defense to get a call in. And again, like I can talk to some people around, see if there's a solution, but there doesn't seem to be one that handles the diversity of the Commanders' offense and the hurry up element. So I think there's a lot of teams that can handle the simplicity of a 2 minute, the simplicity of a straight hurry up, but I can't handle your whole offense in a hurry up situation, which is what they've apparently gotten to, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'll tack on one other thing here. And like we could probably do this for the rest of the show if we wanted to get in detail. We might lose some folks along the way because it can get real nitty gritty. But like there's also other tactical things that they do that, again, work in conjunction with the hurry up, right? Like some of their splits, the way that they're wider and they like make the defense there. And it's like, okay, fine. You have a couple extra calls in this week. The couple extra calls are useless because you're not going to run that against this formation. Right. And so there's certain things that they do with where Ertz lines up or how wide the receivers are. Some of those like wide double stack looks, like they will make you declare. And now Jayden's shooting fish in a barrel because he knows exactly what the defense is. And so it's the combination of the scheme, personnel, and a quarterback who can do everything and is really freaking smart, communicates at a high level. And by the way, the last piece I'll say is Dan Quinn, a head coach who preaches all of that stuff at a really high level, both offense and defense, the communication piece. And that obviously has led to a whole lot of success in year one, and we'll see if they can repeat it in year two. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Tonight, about 2 hours from now, you got tip-off between the Mystics and the Sky here on the Team 980. Washington trying to get back on track against Angel Reese and company. Angel coming off a triple-double this weekend. Christy Winter-Scott, Megan McPeak on the call for Monumental, and you'll hear the simulcast here on the radio. Right now, NBA Finals, though, and a bit of a thought experiment, a thought exercise, Anthony, that I've been kicking around. Traditionally, even role players in the NBA are top 10 picks. Like, if you look at guys who have long careers, mostly it's guys that, oh, that guy was it's like, oh, that guy's been around forever. Like, he wasn't super heralded. Oh, he was the 9th overall pick 10 years ago. Like, for as much of a crapshoot as the NBA is in terms of superstars, like, for the most part, the guys that pan out, like, it's not crazy surprises. And then you look at this NBA Finals, and the contributors in this Finals must have, and it would take, I mean, I'm sure someone could probably figure out how to do this with AI in a more efficient manner. but they've got to have like the lowest average draft position per minute played of any NBA Finals that has ever happened in the history of the sport. I mean, it's crazy. I just think of last year's champion. They're powered, the Boston Celtics, by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, both former number 3 picks in the NBA draft. Like that's more of what your typical stuff is. Porzingis was a top 5 pick. Drew Holiday, while like an unlikely superstar, like he was still a lottery pick. And then this year, I think there's one guy in this entire finals on either roster, period, who's a top 3 pick. Let me double check this real quick. Make sure I'm not forgetting someone. But I am pretty sure the only top 5 pick, the only top 7 pick potentially on either roster is Chet Holmgren, who's still only 21 years old in his second year. The rest of the guys are, like let's just go down the Thunder roster of guys that matter for them. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a lottery pick, as most of a lot of these guys are, but late lottery. He's 11th overall. Jalen Williams, 12th overall. Lou Dort signed as a two-way player. He's an undrafted free agent. Alex Caruso, undrafted, free, or maybe the second rounder, free agent, two-way guy. Played a lot in the G League. Like, Chet is the exception. Then you have guys like Isaiah Joe, who actually didn't even play yesterday. He's a second-round pick. Guys like Cason Wallace, who, you know, he was a top 10 pick. He was 10th. Like, that's the kind of guys that we're talking about. And the same is true on the other side of things. They've got more on the Oklahoma City side of things in that Obi Toppin was an 8th overall pick in 2020. Jarris Walker hasn't even played in the series because he's hurt. He was, remember, he was the 7th pick technically by the Wizards, but they had already pre-done the Koulibaly trade. So he's a top 10 pick, but he doesn't really play. But Toppin, Miles Turner was the 11th overall pick. Haliburton was in that range. Nesmith is a guy that was a lottery pick, but late lottery, but he's on his second team. And so, like, even those guys, Toppin, Nesmith, Haliburton, those guys are all on their second team. So you're not looking at homegrown top 10 picks. And I just kind of wonder with this, if I am another NBA team, what do I do with that information? Because traditionally, as we've talked about a lot in regards to the Wizards and what they're doing, it's like the best way to get talent is to be at the top. And you still certainly, like, you're better off to try to find your star having a high draft pick and doing good scouting than getting lucky that another team doesn't realize they've got a gem under their nose in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was traded, obviously, as part of the Kawhi Leonard deal, or that part of the Paul George deal after being drafted 11th. Or Tyrese Haliburton, same range of the draft. Sacramento's like, this ain't really working. Let's flip him for Domantas Sabonis. And, like, that doesn't seem like the best plan. But I also do wonder if like that's the kind of thing that's going to happen more often as teams are trading draft picks nonstop, as teams are forced to make tough decisions about talent because of the new apron rules and all the silly CBA gymnastics that are designed for parity. And I just think it makes team building really, really hard in the league. And I also think with the influx of international players, the less college experience these guys are getting, the draft is more crapshooty than ever. And I really honestly don't know what my conclusion is here, Anthony. There's just a lot of information on that ends in, hey, isn't it weird that there's like no top 10 picks in this NBA Finals that are doing anything moderately significant outside of like Obi Toppin and Chet Holmgren? That's weird.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think the people that you've mentioned, even Aaron Nesmith, like he was drafted late lottery. But I just think the way the Pacers and the Thunder went about, acquiring these people, they had, the Pacers more specifically, I think they just had specific roles that they wanted those guys to fill. And the fact that, the New York wasn't getting the most out of Obi Toppin, Neesmith was, sort of kind of didn't mesh or gel, fit in with the Celtics right away. I'm pretty sure they love to have him now, having, matured a little bit. But I just think they had more time to, build and grow this unit as opposed to, some of those teams that were championship ready. And they just carved out a role for them guys, and it sort of kind of just worked. But that's what we see with, the Drew Holidays, the Alex Carusos, carving out a role for these guys to come in and impact, the team right away. These guys just happen to be younger and not utilized with their former teams.
I think the other thing that's interesting, and this actually leads into what we're going to talk about next with Durant, is these are young teams, relatively speaking. They're stars. And Haliburton, 25 is kind of the start of an NBA prime. Really, it's more like 27. Shea, I think, is 26. They have some guys that are in their bona fide prime, but they don't have a bunch of 30-year-olds out there running around. It's mid to late 20s, and then obviously Oklahoma City's stupid young, and they got a bunch of early 20s guys. And even Indiana's got guys like Mathurin that are super young and really important to what they do. And that is different as well, but the physical nature, and I realize that old heads are going to be like, this game's not physical. Nobody punches anybody in the head. And it's like, okay, it's not physical in the same way it was physical in the 90s, but the physical demands, because of how much running is happening now, the athleticism of the game, it kind of favors younger, deeper teams. And so do you sacrifice some high-end talent for some depth? And is that actually the right play to merely survive the playoffs and get to this point? I was listening to a pod the other day that, someone was like, hey, Philadelphia, can you ever imagine Joel Embiid? And I'm a huge Joel Embiid fan, but this rocked me to my Joel Embiid fan core. There's no way Joel Embiid's ever surviving 4 rounds of the playoffs to win a title. You can give him the whole year off and be like, hey, man, all right, now you got to play playoff basketball on an every other day schedule at this intensity, and I need you to play 30-plus minutes at your Joel Embiid best. You think he's making 4 series worth? It is a young man's game in a way it's kind of never been before, which I think is a fascinating thing. And again, I don't know what to do with this information, but the NBA's clearly changed in a way that we haven't fully figured out and appreciated yet, and we might not for years until we're able to look back at it and make sense of it. But I think it's worth acknowledging in the moment how different this finals, and really the last couple of years too, because I was just looking back at finals participants. The last number 1 overall pick to really do damage in an NBA finals was LeBron in 2020. Other than that, you got the Heat a couple of times, built around Jimmy Butler, who was obviously not a top pick, and Bam Adebayo, who was a late lottery pick. You have Giannis, who's, late lottery, incredibly unprecedented story. Jokic, second rounder, incredibly unprecedented story. The Celtics teams that I talked about, Tatum should have been the number 1 overall pick, but that's a different story. And then the Warriors obviously win it in 2022, and they're built around Steph, who's his own story. And 2021, the team the Bucks beat is Phoenix. They've got Devin Booker as their best player. He was, I think, the 7th pick. So we're just looking at a very different stretch of NBA history here. And if I'm trying to build a team, I don't really know what to do with it. I do know that Kevin Durant's still really good at basketball. I don't know what his actual value is. I do know a team that if I were them under certain circumstances, I would definitely be trading for him. I'll tell you who next on the Team 980. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Kevin Durant definitely could be the next big move to happen in the NBA. We have 8 days to the NBA draft. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the latest rumors, rumblings, movement. Nipples rising up boards in a major way. We'll talk about that tomorrow here on the show. But yeah, Anthony, he's got that jumper. People seem to want a shooter. Can't imagine why. But there's, we'll run through some of the top prospects tomorrow and see who some of the latest folks have going to the Wiz. I know ESPN's put out a recent mock like today. Athletics put out a couple, so we'll dive into all that. But there's going to be a ton of trade movement, I anticipate, over the next week. We already saw it start with Desmond Bane going. There was a trade actually today. The Pacers traded the 23rd pick in this year's draft and a G Leaguer to the actually, I don't even remember. Sorry, all due respect to the G Leaguer, which way he went in the trade. They made a trade with someone, and they got their own first-round pick back next year, which freed up some cap space, which is going to help them hopefully pay Miles Turner. So, you're already starting to see some stuff happen. But Durant is the big fish here, at the very least in name. I think the question is, especially based off the last conversation we had, right, where it's like, oh, this is a young man's game. NBA Finals are two of the younger teams in the league, deeper teams in the league. How much is, what is the team structure that actually makes Kevin Durant worth having? He has said he is willing to sign an extension for the Texas teams that are in play here, Houston and San Antonio. And then he is also interested potentially in Miami. But I actually think the best fit for him, under one condition, is going to Minnesota to play with Anthony Edwards. And if I'm Minnesota, I don't really care if you don't want to sign the extension, because either we're going to win and I'm going to want you to, and you probably will want to as well, or you're going to hate it here and okay, fine, we'll move on. But I think as long as they don't have to give up Gobert, if you essentially turn Naz Reid into Kevin Durant, why wouldn't you want to do that? Let's upgrade the playmaking. Let's upgrade the shooting. Let's, hey, KD, you don't have to carry a burden. His shooting numbers are still outrageously good. He was almost, if he wasn't, 50, 40, 90 this year. He's still so good. But he's also 36. He'll be 37 by the time the season starts. This is not a long-term investment. You have to be able to win right now. And Minnesota is a team that was in the conference finals and gave Oklahoma City a run for half a second. They're one of the few teams that really does fit that threshold. Houston's an interesting one. If I'm San Antonio, I don't know that I'm there yet. As great as I think Wemby could be even next year. If I'm Minnesota, I'm looking at a window here with Gobert still being a premier defensive presence for maybe another year or two, Edwards coming into the absolute peak of his powers over the next 3 years. And I would do the deal if I was Minnesota, depending on what the deal was. I'd try to keep Gobert out of it. I think there's a chance Julius Randle has to be in it. However, that gets complicated because he's got a player option. But that's the team that if I could just pick a Kevin Durant team, I think it would be Minnesota.
I would love for him to go to Minnesota as well. But for some reason, they aren't being mentioned.
Well, because he didn't mention them as part of the 3 teams he'd want to go to.
Yeah. I mean, I just seen Anthony Edwards put out the Will Smith meme where he's standing in the living room looking around and it's like, my dad doesn't want me and things of that nature. So it's just I don't necessarily know if Minnesota's in contention. But if they are, I would love for KD to go play with Anthony Edwards because, again, that's all Anthony Edwards needed last year. He needed some help. Didn't get the help from Naz Reid. Julius struggled throughout the series. So Kevin Durant, having a young guy that can just, go out there and do his own thing, it's not going to be, Anthony Edwards is a star and, KD takes a backseat. It's going to be 1A, 1B kind of thing. And I think that's where Kevin Durant thrives. He thrives in a system where he doesn't necessarily have to be, number one, but he can take over if need be kind of thing. And right now, Anthony Edwards already being in his prime. I think this is a prime location for him to land. But if not there, my vote is Houston. My vote is Houston, man. they get Kevin Durant down there with them young whippersnappers, Craig, man.
They could be really good. Offensively, they're going to be, if they can figure out how to get the money right for Van Vliet and get him back, and it's him, Durant, Şengün, and then, see what kind of athleticism, and, obviously you have one of the Thompson twins, who's one of the best defenders in the league.
Hell yeah.
With Amen Thompson. So
you got Cam Whitmore off the bench as well if you want to use him.
And then
if you
Reed
let
Shepard, they've got a bunch of pieces that are really interesting. That trade package would be done around Jalen Green, so he would be on the way out. But Houston's so interesting to me because then, is Durant then your best player? In terms of, are you building your offensive system around him? Do you want to do that at this age? Because Houston offensively, they need him for sure. My question would be, is he enough? And if not, at this stage of his career, are you better off keeping your powder dry to try to find someone else who fits the rest of your guys' timeline better? And that's a tough question if you're Houston. Because here would be my question. If you're Minnesota, you already made the conference finals, right? And you made it 2 straight years. So you are theoretically really, really close. Is Durant enough to push you over the top? I think that's an easy sell to tell yourself yes, depending on what you give up. I think if you give up Gobert, then it's stupid because now you've given up the thing that is one of your great strengths, your defense, in order to get more offense, but I don't know net you've gotten that much better. So that becomes complicated because Phoenix really wants a center. If you're Houston, is your current group plus Durant enough to beat Oklahoma City? Because that's ultimately the question you're trying to ask. And I think that's a harder sell because I think Houston was so far away offensively that, and we know that the ability to generate real offense in the playoffs is enormous. Maybe you say Durant solves that problem and that's good enough. My question would be, does Durant solve that problem in 2025? And this is 2017. Hell yeah, you make this deal for that Kevin Durant. It also costs you 5 times as much. But is Durant able to carry that kind of burden? And I don't know at this point. He was awesome last year statistically, but he was awesome on a bad team. So what does that translate to in crunch time on a good team?
My thing is, Craig, this guy, no matter what year he's in, I mean, he's not slowing down right now, but his ability to just put the ball in the basket,
that's crazy,
is ridiculous. So I don't really look at the age. Again, I think him, LeBron,
you have
Steph,
to look at the age though, because look, those guys don't play as many minutes at a high level as they used to. They just don't, and that's fine. They're 3 of the best 15 to 20 players of all time. Curry, no shade to Durant, but Curry and LeBron are 2 of the best 8 players of all time. And Durant somewhere between 11 and 20, right? And we can have that fight a different day. July is coming, right? But he's still, from a scoring standpoint, he's one of the 5 best scorers probably of all time.
Exactly.
He's still great at that, but you have to, what made Kevin Durant a top 20 all-time player was he also was a really effective defender, really good rebounder. So there was more to his game that is not quite there as high a level as often as it used to be. I think if I was Houston, I would probably make the bet, especially depending on if you don't have to give up a ton. And I'm hoping that guys like Shepard come along and that the offensive gap gets filled in part by what I already have and in part by Durant. I think I'd probably do it just to be clear, but I think it's a harder sell than it is for Minnesota. I think I'd prefer Minnesota get him in terms of someone else to challenge OKC.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, also, I don't think KD would have to, play that many minutes. The Rockets, they had a deep unit. They had 9 people that they were playing last year. So I don't think he's going to have to go out there and play 40 minutes.
Yeah, you can go play 27 minutes a game in the regular season. The question is, in the playoffs, how hard do you lean on him? And maybe you can play 27 minutes a game in the regular season. The answer is pretty hard, but he's ready for it. So
yeah,
TBD. We'll obviously follow that story as it goes. Again, 8 days to the NBA draft, which is when that deal is possible to go down by. And we will talk about it more, the draft, that is, more tomorrow. When we get back, Mystics back in action tonight. We'll take a look at their matchup against the Chicago Sky, and then real things, real people said into real microphones here on the Team 980. Austin Eckler on Terry McLaurin's contract situation coming up in Real Things at 6:45. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Busy night in the WNBA, including the game you'll hear right here on the Team 980, the Mystics and Sky. 6 games in all tonight, Anthony. All Commissioners Cup games starting at 7 o'clock on NBA TV. You can catch the Sun and Fever. Of course, Caitlin Clark is back. She went absolutely bananas in her first game back this weekend, a big win over the Liberty. Speaking of the Liberty, they are coming off their first loss of the season, which was over the weekend. Was it Sunday? Saturday? Whenever that was. To the Fever. They host the Atlanta Dream, who are coming off an absolute demolition of the Mystics on Sunday. Valkyries and Wings, Paige Beckers and company. Beckers, by the way, pulling ahead, or back ahead in the Rookie of the Year race from Kiki Eriefin, averaging 17.4 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 6.1 assists. is Becker's, although her team is just 1-11. They're taking on the surprisingly not terrible Golden State Valkyries. They're playing really well. Huge shout out to them for what they're doing. Aces and Lynx tonight. Lynx also coming off their first loss of the season. Asia Wilson remaining out, I do believe, for Las Vegas. Minnesota, by the way, here on Thursday. Friday? Next time the Mystics play. They're
Yo no say.
Son of a gun. On.
I know they play Sunday though.
Oh no, it is Sunday. No, the Wings play here on Sunday. What? Oh, maybe I was looking at next week. I was. It's the 24th. A week from tonight. The Lynx are here. Good job, Craig. Storm and Sparks also tonight, which there's a chance for one of the funniest things that could happen. You remember, Anthony, in the offseason after Dominique Malunga kind of burst onto the scene for folks, the number 2 overall pick, who's not playing a ton for Seattle, but is starting to get a little bit more, or a few more minutes here and there. But Rakia Jackson was like, please, Lord, don't let me be the first woman to be dunked on in the WNBA.
Uh-huh.
So, could be funny if it happens tonight.
Uh-oh.
Just saying. But our game tonight, Mystics and Sky, really much needed win for Chicago over the weekend. It not only were they playing poorly, it just felt like there was a toxicity around the discussion about them in a really nasty way. I have a ton of respect for Ariel Atkins, who had stepped up in a press conference and basically been like, quit asking Angel Reese dumb questions. Please start asking her about basketball. She is here working her ass off trying to play basketball. And sure enough, they go out against Connecticut. They get a nice 12-point win where Reese has 11 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals, and reminds everybody, like, hey, this is me at my best. The problem is, I think, for Chicago is even in that game where Angel has this, like, terrific output all across the box score, she's 2 of 7 from the field. She's still shooting an abysmal field goal percentage from the field. She got to the free throw line 7 times and made all 7 of her free throws. But I think where Chicago's going to eventually be a really good team around Angel Reese is when they can start surrounding her with cutters and shooters. And, like, you don't necessarily make her the focal point of an offense, but you let her operate in smart areas where she can be a playmaker and she can be someone you dump the ball to at the high post or at the nail, faces up, drives, draws fouls, or is finding cutters or shooters as the defense collapses. And she's capable of doing that. And then, obviously, you get her close to the basket, let her do the offensive rebound thing, and she's, the best in the league at that. I just don't think this roster is built like that. And I think this is a chance for Washington. And now, Connecticut's bad, but they only scored 66. I do think this is a chance for Washington to get out and run a little bit, play the style they want to play, and ultimately get back to some winning ways. They haven't won a game in a long time because they have barely played. They didn't have a game for a week. They got smacked by Atlanta. Before that, they had that really big, dominant win over Connecticut a week prior. But then before that, they had lost 3 of 4 and really actually lost 6 of 7 going back to when they started the season 2-2. So this Mystics team, I think, is one that people are still trying to figure out. They're one that's very reliant on their young talent. They need, their all-star caliber players like Brittany Sykes to get back on track. But I think to me, the big thing for how good the Mystics are going to be this season is, does Aaliyah Edwards ever get going? Does Shakira Austin ever get consistently going? Kira's had a couple of big ones. Aaliyah's had a pretty tough season so far. They have to find some rhythm for those two, find a role that works for those two. And I think tonight's a good opportunity against the Chicago team. And Aaliyah played very well against Chicago last season.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Chicago Sky, I mean, I was, happy to see Angel Reese go out there and respond the way she did. And we're just also just seeing her develop her game. Like, again, one of the criticisms I have for her was she will always try to go up amongst 3 people. And it's just like, just kick the ball out. And she's been doing that, and it resulted in her, having her first career triple-double. So I'm not worried about, Angel Reese, and the growth of her game. But I would like to see people, be a little bit less critical of her because, again, she's a sophomore And
she's a young player, and she was the 7th pick for a reason. And I know that, like, it's hard to believe because people only knew 2 players in last year's draft. I was like, how could you not take her behind Caitlin? Or some people, how could you not take her over Caitlin? Well, we know what that was about, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's because she's I would say she's a flawed player, but, like, she's certainly not Clark, MVP caliber, but I don't know that she's ever the best player on a championship team. But she's a really good basketball player. And that's what 7th overall picks are in the WNBA draft, is like they're bona fide starters. She's already got an all-star, and she might make a ton of all-star teams, which would be a hell of a pick at 7. But there's a reason she was 7. Some of that is she probably should have been higher, and she maybe should have been, 3rd, 4th, 5th. We can talk about that, 3 years from now. But there's a reason that she wasn't, like, thought of as a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
And it's because her limits offensively are real. And unfortunately, she's playing in a place in Chicago that doesn't have a whole lot of other options. And she winds up probably taking more shots than she should, or, different shots than she should on a team where she's got more support and would find more success in the win column. But going to be a fun one tonight. Megan McPeak, Christy Winters-Scott, you'll have the call here on the Team 980 tip-off just after 8 o'clock. When we get back, we wrap up the show with real things real people said in real microphones, including Austin Eckler talking to the Ross Tucker podcast about Terry McLaurin's contract. More specifically, not talking about Terry McLaurin's contract. We'll explain next. Hoffman Show. We're wrapping up here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. Nats underway. Rockies already have a runner on, 1 out, top of the first. Of course, that game's over on 106.7 The Fan if you want to tune in a minute once we are done. I mean, I guess technically you could tune over right now, but that would be rude. Telling you things you want to know, and then you leave us. Of course, BetMGM tonight follows us here on the Team 980 for an hour tonight before you get to Mystics and Sky at 8. Tomorrow on the show, I think we're going to have a special Wednesday edition of Never Read the Comments, so looking forward to that. What else did we have? It's a week to the NBA draft. What else we got tomorrow, Anthony? We'll review Mystics and Sky.
I think that's it.
We had like a bunch of stuff written down. Let's see what else we got. Oh, I have an interview with the. There's a new documentary coming out, and it sounds really cool. I actually need to watch it. Probably tomorrow morning. It's a short doc. But I'm talking to the director tomorrow, so we'll have a fun interview on that. The film premiered this weekend at the DC Docs Film Festival. So I'm excited to hopefully have more information on where you can watch it sometime soon. But yeah, that's what we got. And then we're off on Thursday. We got a bunch of stuff planned for Friday, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. As for right now, we wrap up this show the same way that we wrap up all our shows. It's time for Real Things.
Real things.
We're not gonna be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Set into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right. I thought this was interesting. I thought this was smart. From Austin Eckler. Yeah, that Austin Eckler, the Commanders running back, was on the Ross Tucker Show podcast. And he was asked about Terry McLaurin's contract negotiation. And?
Yeah, all of these conversations get really personal for us. And so you definitely don't want to be just chatting with guys unless you're like tight like that. You know, I wish them the best. Absolutely. Go get what you're worth because you're a huge impact to the not only the team but just the league in general. Like, you made a bunch of great plays, especially coming off of last year, what you did for us. I don't even want to be in that because then now I have information that if someone asks me about, I actually do know, and I got to say, I can't talk. I don't know anything that's going on if I don't ask, you know. So I'm staying on the outside.
Sometimes, Anthony, ignorance is actually bliss. That
was very smart.
What I took out of that. All right. What else do we got in the folder of fun today? Doc Rivers was the head coach of the Los Angeles Clippers when the Clippers traded Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And look, at the time, they were trying to get Paul George, which would lock them in Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi was coming off a title. And that was a potent combination that they thought could win them a championship. But Doc definitely knew if they didn't win a championship, that it probably wasn't going to go great. This on the Bill Simmons show.
Now he's having one of the best start to finish guard seasons in the history of the position.
History of the game.
He's one of the best scoring guards I've ever seen. Did you see this? Because I know you saw greatness in him, but not this.
I loved him. Yeah, I loved him. I told you that. I told you that 3 years ago. Yeah. But I mean, come on. I mean, no one saw this. It bothered me to make that call to Shai, and I've shared that. That was a tough call. He handled it like such a pro. But you also felt it was like this, I'm going to make you pay for this trade. That's how you felt. I called Sam, and Sam had just talking to him as well. And Sam says, I tell you, we just gave away an assassin. And we better win it because this he's going to come back and haunt all of us.
Well, Doc, since then, has had a couple of gigs, and he has no titles. And Shai now has an MVP and is 1 game away from a championship. So, in that way, Anthony, I guess Doc at least knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah. If you're going to look back and say, I always knew, you should have kept him then.
Well, I mean, one, it wasn't his call.
You're right. It wasn't.
And also, these are the games that you play. Like this is kind of an interesting thing, I think, right now in the NBA. Right, is you have teams like Orlando, or what's the example that just happened? Oh, this is gonna drive me nuts. Name some of the big trades that have just happened recently.
Desmond Bane.
Oh no, it's the one that hasn't happened yet. Durant, right? So the Nets go all in. Actually, really, the Nets are the better example here, right? The Nets go all in on Durant, Kyrie, Harden, right? It doesn't work. Crap. What do? We bail and we get most of those assets back. And now the Nets are the only team with cap space this summer, and they're probably not going to spend a ton of it, but it allows them to take on bad contracts and get even more draft capital, and they have a ton of picks. And they have a really good chance of being bad next year if they want to be. They could be in a really good lottery. They could also have potential to move up or move things around at the deadline. And they are in a really good position, despite the fact that it was like 3-4 years ago even that they made that move for Durant. Phoenix now is going to try to do the same thing and salvage. But like, this is kind of thing if you're Orlando, you trade all these picks for Desmond Bane, and if it doesn't work out in 4 years, you trade Paolo Banchero to someone else and you get a bunch of picks back and you restock the deck. And so this is how the NBA kind of works now, and the Clippers are kind of at that point where the things have run out for them, but we'll see where it goes from here. All right, that's our show for today. We'll see you tomorrow.